It's hot, it's bright.
Oh.
So I'm going to give a quick introduction of our panellists,
Like one of those,
and then we're going to get right in with hearing about some of their examples of using analytics. So on my left, I've got Matt Teenan from Bloomberg, who oversees ad sales efforts at Bloomberg. Efforts, they're described as
Some days
in
it's an
your
effort,
bio.
I assure you.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? So you can tell us more about those efforts shortly. Andrea Campana, who's Italian MD at PubMatic, previously worked at Zodiac Media, and has a PhD in physics. So we've got a strong educational element on this panel, I'd like everybody to note. So next we have Gustav, who's CEO and founder of BERT from Sweden. Next we have Klaus, who's our academic, our most illustrious academician on the panel, having got a PhD and working at Goethe University in Frankfurt and with stints at Wharton and Stanford and various other eminent institutions. And last but not least, Amir from local media, part of the Daily Mail group, who's previously worked at Google, I believe, amongst other things. So thanks very much for joining me. I work at IAB Europe, so slightly different from IAB and Guy, who you heard from earlier. So Guy has the great advantage of working within the largest country in Europe, as you heard, in terms of market statistics. I have the challenge of working with lots of other markets to encourage them to grow and prosper as much as the UK. So it's interesting to think about that kind of European dynamic as we have a panel of expertise from across the region as well with me today. So I'm going to kick off with our first question, which is about how people are currently using real-time analytics in their businesses. So Matt, do you want to kick off and give us some idea of what Bloomberg's been doing in this area?
So, I mean, this is kind of very much part of where we've come from. So Bloomberg actually, first and foremost, is a technology company. When it was launched back in the early 80s by Mike Bloomberg, it's a financial data company. So data's been absolutely at the heart of everything from day one that we've ever done. And as the media arm has sort of organically grown, we've absolutely taken that legacy. So from a sort of commercial standpoint, data's something that we play with every day. Our sort of positioning on it very much is a blend of proprietary data that we have. We're lucky enough to have a set of technologists, for want of a better expression, and a big R&D department that are about 4,500 strong. They are constantly looking at how we can improve and enhance our commercial offering, but they also look at the editorial side. So we do both. Obviously, we're looking at how we drive data, how we drive our positioning, if you like, editorially. How do we get more eyeballs? How do we get people to stay longer? And then on the commercial side, we're developing our own proprietary products. So an example of that is something that we launched over in the last sort of few days in Europe, something that's called Trender. So Trender, for example, uses an algorithm to really start to understand who the top stories are, who are the top companies being mentioned, and now allows an ad product to be placed around that so that an advertiser can follow that story deep into the heart of our website. So that's a recent example of what we've been doing.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'd like to move along to Amir next, sort of coming from a publisher perspective as well. We'll go backwards and forwards. Do you want to tell us a bit about your experience with Local World?
Yeah, so I was first introduced to Local World when I was working in the same building as Matt, Northcliffe House. We were in different products at the time. I was working with a company called ANNY Media, Any Media, and the Mail Online. Local World was the second largest source of inventory for us, and we had quite an advanced analytics system, and the advent of programmatic over the last kind of 3 years transformed, I think, the value of Local World's audience in the eyes of agencies and buyers. And I was able to witness that from one of our yield analytics tools, the CPMs that advertisers were willing to pay for Local World's audience. So for me, I saw an opportunity with Local World that they've got a very good leadership team, open-minded, willing to experiment, and I went in-house, which didn't please everybody, of course, at the Mail Online. Took the tools that we had with us, built some new ones, and it's been a very lucrative experience, actually. We've grown the revenue massively. We've got a huge programmatic team, which is unusual for publishers who still are starting to understand that programmatic is a reality and it's happening. And it's been a very, very positive experience.
So we've heard quite a bit today about the speed with which it's taken publishers some time to get to grips with programmatic, and there's been a fair few challenges along the way. What are the major challenges that you've found?
Well, I think there's many compounding issues with programmatic. One of them is the attitude of senior people, that often they fail to understand that programmatic is not going to rob them of their revenue or of their jobs in some cases. It's actually just a different way of transacting. Like the financial system changed in the 90s, it was pen and paper. It went from pen and paper to bots, speaking to bots, a lot of automation. I mean, automation is probably a better word than programmatic. That's still taking place. And the other issue is actually, I think, there's a scarcity of programmatic talent. So it's not that publishers don't want to employ programmatic people. Sometimes they don't know where to find them. And they're quite rare, people that understand the entire holistic approach to programmatic. And I think that they're expensive in some cases as well. So, I mean, I'd use myself as an example in terms of growing my career, accelerating really fast because of programmatic. When I started working on programmatic, nobody knew what it was, and now I'm sitting on a panel with these guys, and I'm very fortunate to have that because of programmatic's growth. So I think, there's still an attitude with some publishers as well that like programmatic's just not real. I mean, I've heard that, like, I still hear that. I heard that today. I heard that I was in Italy recently. Is the earth round? You need to come to terms with the fact that programmatic is a reality. It's here. It's a transactional method. There are ways to execute programmatic campaigns. It's not just about real-time bidding. And I think once the more talent in the market and people become more comfortable with the idea that you have to embrace that talent, then be less issues for everybody.
Yeah, thanks. So Klaus, I think from your perspective, you've looked at programmatic and the challenge, the way that the business is changing from an econometric perspective, haven't you? Sort of what have you found in your studies and in working in the real world with companies like Ringier as well? What have you found are the challenges and the benefits that companies have been able to achieve?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the top management mindset also, which plays a very important role because I think the technical teams, they typically very quickly realize that certain things are interesting or should be tried out or put into place, but I think it really takes also the support from the top management to be able to execute these things, to invest in those technologies, and also to invest in the right people. And this is really the hard part. And this is where we also try to, from an academic perspective, try to really get those people together, offer like a master's program in marketing analytics, for example, to get those data scientists that the industry actually requests.
Okay. And do you think we know what those people look like? I mean, are they generally data scientists, or are they physics graduates, or are they bankers, or?
Yeah, typically it should be a mixture of several skills, and that's why it's so hard to find those people. It's people who are in the area or familiar with the areas of computer science, it's statistics, but it should also be some subject knowledge that you actually know what is going on in the industry, how does the ad business work, for example. And this is really hard to find, so you have to really think about what you need, and maybe you can train those people then on the job, for example. Like when I was just leaving Ringier, we hired a chemist who was working for the CERN Institute at Geneva, like doing very specific research there, and is now working in the advertising business, which is totally different, but it's a skill. It's about the skills that this person has, and that's why this was so interesting for Ringier to hire people like that. And I think it's hard to find those people within the media industry itself.
Yeah. Gustav, what about your experiences? You've obviously founded your company in Sweden, you've been to New York, you've set up the business there as well. In terms of the challenges, first of all, of doing that, and then helping companies to get competitive advantage with programmatic, what learnings have you got for us?
Oh, wow. That's the billion-dollar question. So put it this way, I think that for me and my customers, so we work in the US, we work with Hearst, Times, and a lot of the largest media groups in the world. And for them, programmatic is a 40, 80, $100 million business. So it's like, it's not something that you debate whether it's a thing or not. For us and our customers, it usually comes down to access to data. So it's interesting that we mentioned the word real-time in sort of the title for this panel, because I don't want to offend our host, but I don't think that we're there yet, that's like the lowest hanging fruit to capture more of the yield curve. And the issue is that the people that graduate from Klaus or come from CERN spend 80% of their time pulling data from 8 different systems, normalizing it, cleaning it, and on a good day, 10% analysis, and then 10% to present it and convey that message to people. So I think that for and this has been a point that's been made over and over, I think, which is for an industry that's promoting automation, there sure is a lot of work involved in making it automated.
So are we trying to complicate things as we go along too much, rather than keeping it simple and getting on top of it and making it real time?
Yeah, I had a discussion on this earlier. It's really like an industry, as an industry, we're essentially selling tools to consolidate and make things more transparent. But in practice, what we're actually delivering on is providing more fragmentation, complexity, and essentially arbitraging on people's ignorance. So it's, I mean, come on. We should be happy. We all have a job. So it's. But it's funny because we're talking about user experiences, and the only reason we're doing that is that now people are blocking the ads. That was what was necessary for that to come to the agenda at a conference like this, which is depressing. I mean, we should be talking about the user experience as means of providing value and making more money. Because in reality, if every impression was viewable by a human, 100% of the transaction was automated, and every ad unit responsive, it'd still be a tough business to create quality content. So even if all our visions come into fruition, we still won't make it. So I'd say that on my customer's end, it's the fact that we run 12 different systems and we need to aggregate data across those to figure out what did we make last week, fundamental issue. And on the other end, it's about, okay, even if we execute better on this model, we're still not going to make it. So a very low-level issue and a very high-level issue, which is great. I mean, it's good to be a vendor in that business, so I'm not complaining.
Matt, do you want to add a comment?
Well, I suppose I was just thinking about what Amir was saying as well, really. I think programmatic doesn't, certainly from our standpoint, it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to suddenly change the world. And again, I'm not trying to offend the host. It's a really important, evolving transactional method. The key thing for me is understanding, and as a media owner, is understanding how we get the best out of that. Now, everybody is potentially starting from different, the journey from different start points, which means that, I mean, that's a big consideration. So I think understanding where you are on the track is the first thing, and absolutely surrounding yourself with people who are dedicated to developing your involvement in it is key. I'm a big believer that there's still a role for programmatic, and a really important evolving role for programmatic, but also a role for direct selling for some time to come. I really do. I don't think the world's suddenly going to become automated, but it's a balance.
Well, I guess programmatic itself will evolve, isn't it? So we don't really know how far we are down the track is one point, and
yeah, but I do think it's a lot of people find it very complicated still.
Yes. Andrea, what would you?
Yeah, so one of my favorite discussion with publishers, Salesforce, usually is around the big difference between direct campaign and programmatic campaign, that is forecasting. So it's true that for direct campaign, you can plan almost everything in advance. You know which advertiser you're going to have next month, how much inventory you need to satisfy a specific campaign, how much are they supposed to pay. While for programmatic campaign, you really don't know so much. You can plan something. Most of the time, you don't even know what is going to happen over the next hour. So data are important, not only to understand what happened actually yesterday and 1 week ago, that is important for your forecasting, but also to understand what is happening now. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to wake up tomorrow morning and figure out that today you have a specific demand coming for a specific advertiser for a specific placement, and you don't have allocated enough inventory, you know, to satisfy the advertiser. So getting back to the topic of the panel, real-time analytics are important also to drive better revenues today, because you can easily understand if you have a specific demand, maybe coming from a territory or for a specific site. What I think it's still a blocker is not the understanding of data, but it's probably technology, because the way you allocate inventory is mainly happening on the ad server, while your marketplace or programmatic marketplace is on a SSP. So you still have to get people understanding data, understanding number, taking decision, and then ask to the colleague that is managing inventory to allocate inventory a different way. This, I think, it's one of the technical blockers we have.
Could I just on that, say I think that everybody knows they need to understand data. I think the problem that people are finding is how to do it. Boston Consultancy Group did a piece of research for Google, and we were invited to this publisher forum event, and we were told that through the power of the SSP, we're able to tell how much the advertisers are willing to spend. And the first and foremost advice from this piece of research is for us to take those winning bid CPMs and go and consult our buyers and demand partners. The interesting thing is that you can't actually pull that data out of the SSP. And what was astonishing for me was that every publisher in there didn't even realize that. So to get access to that data, you need to engage tools that can read from the API. Many platforms are limited in the data they supply just off the dashboard. So going past the dashboard, going into the kind of deep data to the clouds, that's a very difficult thing for publishers to achieve. I've seen it done before, and it's not easy. But I think everybody would agree that we need to get access to that data to apply the business insights and intelligence. I was interested in what you said, because you said that the problem is that you've got many different systems all in one place. Were you talking about like programmatic servicing the publisher, or in terms of everything?
The crass answer is everything.
Everything.
I mean, programmatic is obviously insane. And we're talking about this earlier, right? We're putting auction upon auction upon auction upon auction. Now we're in the client side, in the header, auctioning new things. So we're adding systems like this, and we're adding systems like that. So programmatic is very extreme in my book. But even just direct ad serving, most of our clients have at least 3 direct ad servers.
Yeah. But for us, so what we find, what our approach is that competition is healthy, because there are full stack solutions and exclusivity deals that are offered by people like Google, but I don't think that's healthy for media owners, for publishers.
No, I'm a big believer in fragmentation and competition. I don't think that there's the one stack. So I think you actually do need multiple ad servers, multiple systems to deliver on what the marketer needs. So there's no way around it, but it's tough to debate the complexity and the amount of time that goes in. I mean, one of our clients, for their premium sales teams, they do 2,000 campaign reports a year. Every campaign takes about 40 to 60 hours to assemble, because it's across 8 different systems. And those are highly qualified people that need to do this job. So let's just assume it's $100 an hour. The amount of money that you spend, that their analysis is that unless we fix this and automate this process and make it easier, we have to hire people just to sustain our revenue that we have right now, because we're going to add more systems to this mess, right? So for me, I sort of see it as, I like the idea of real time, because it sort of implies easy access to information. But I do think that as an industry, we have very fundamental issues that we need to fix first. I like anyone that takes a long perspective, that takes that advocates for the consumer, and that also tries to think about their business from a marketer standpoint. I love what Paul Kane at Bloomberg has been talking about, building an ad business from the advertiser's point of view, as opposed to having eyeballs over here, technology over here, and then you try to find an overlap that's squeezing out as many pennies as possible from every impression.
I think that one of our issues is that this is an industry, growth is very fast, okay, so programmatic growth is certainly by IAB Europe's figures, 75% per year growth in programmatic across Europe, so that's huge, and at the same time we have to deal with hygiene issues like viewability, we have to deal with issues like user experience, which is, that's not a quick fix.
It's not an issue, user experience.
No, I know it's not an issue, but it's, it's a topic of discussion currently, I guess, and blocking and things like that. So these are complex things to deal with, the things that we need to fix and to come together as an industry to sort out, but also these more individual publisher choices around how they develop that fantastic user experience. So I'm wondering, Klaus, do you have anything to share with us on that topic in terms of how publishers that you've worked with, that you've seen develop their proposition in that way to really put consumer at the forefront and at the same time galvanize the potential of programmatic?
Yeah, what I saw is basically, which goes in the same direction, that publishers want to gain more data ownership, basically get those systems together. Typically there are a couple of legacy systems that you actually want to get together, and until you're actually able to do all those fun things that are interesting and that improve customer experience, for example. So what you want to do is, for example, use the data to make website experiences more personal, not just have one website maybe, but target websites, content to specific customers, but also target advertising to specific customers. And that's how you can really use this information that you have. But in order to be able to do that, you have to do your homework. You have to get those systems together. You have to be able to track users across several devices. You have to have the people who can actually do that work. You need the technology. So I think there's a lot of homework to be done to actually be able to leverage this real-time idea of serving content, ads, whatever, to the consumer in real time. And then you arrive at the point where you have actually a really, really good customer experience, because it's not one website to everybody, but it's a personalized website to somebody who is right now sitting on this panel in London and not in Frankfurt, for example.
Amir, do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that we're framing these topics sometimes on panels, for me, it gets a bit irritating because it's like we're on some crusade to solve issues. These issues have always been here, They're not, the way that media grabs it is that it's a moment issue. It was an issue before the moment, it's just everyone's talking about it now. So I guess the underlying reality is that all these bad creative sizes and bad advertisers are being fueled by money, right? The control in the publisher's hand is just illusory. The real driving factor is economics. So if people are telling us on one hand, a pre-roll video or a display banner needs to be at least 50% viewable, but then giving money to very small tech agencies to deliver advertising across an array of inventory from the same budget so that they can cream off the top on the margin, and it's coming from the same source, well, who's fueling that? Because I don't know any agency that turns away money from their clients. They don't. So you've got two different entities inside the agency, one that's beating me over the head for viewability and performance, and the other one that's funding a company out of Israel that is also sending me an email or a LinkedIn message, can I get this same advert, this same brand on your site? There's a lot of hypocrisy in our industry, and I think that the reality is, for me, it's just this every day is another way to make money. What can I do to make more money today? I've got a revenue focus. That's always been a commercial drive for me. It's just what can I do in our waterfall and our ad stack? I don't care what you're called, what your technology is called. If you're going to make me more money, let's work with it. Because the issues, I mean, they're not something that I can personally solve. We're not going to just magically come together and fix them. It'll just be like ad blocker comes and stops all advertising, and then make as much money as you can right now. That's my approach.
No, but we as an industry have to act to, there has to be industry codes, which there are, and then the moral ethics amongst the industry participants to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen. But maybe from my trade body position, I look on these things in too much of I have very high expectations on people, do you think?
No, I mean, it's healthy to have a trade body or somebody that scrutinizes the quality of advertising. The problem is that if you've got £10 million of advertising budget and 6 million of it goes to video, and the inventory that exists, the majority of it's on YouTube, and the rest is not available. So then what do? You stick it inside an MPU, and you give it an in-banner solution name. And where does that come? It comes programmatically for 10 cents below the fold where no one can see it. I don't see anybody complaining about that. I'll take it though. So it's a reality that nobody's pushing back on the driver, and the single most important driver is economics, is money.
Yes, and also education of clients and things like that in terms of what they should be aiming for, and what their strategies should be hoping to deliver, because surely there must be some false expectations in that scenario. I don't know what to please.
What, in terms of the putting bad creative in front of?
Well, just in terms of being put into a situation such as Amir has just described, and delivering something which is effectively then not going to help us overall deliver a great advertising experience. So the whole thing spirals as far as I can see.
Yeah, I think you're always going to have that, but I think everybody knows a bad ad when they see a bad ad. I think the interesting trend for me is, and I don't know whether it'll ever get into the programmatic space, but the whole sort of custom content area is growing for a reason. So the whole sort of creative execution of advertising, that's a real big growing revenue stream for us, and that is about clients developing bespoke messaging to land at special moments on a particular website or a particular partner's real estate. So I don't think that's the answer to it, but I think it's one way that we're going to sort of counteract the problem, short of sitting down as a business and working out what we do with crap ads.
Well, as we are able to do bigger and better things, that scope should broaden, and things like that should come into it, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
And then the ability to deliver better and better creative tailored to people should improve as well, at greater scale. I don't know. Gustav, do you want to add to that?
No, I do think that the potential to use real-time analytics to work with those type of campaigns is far greater than squeezing out a penny more in your sort of today's sort of waterfall optimization. A good litmus test, if you have good ad creative, is to remove all the content. I'd say that any strong media product, you can remove all the content and still have a decent user experience. Anything from Vogue to Google AdWords would be a great example. I'd use Google even if they didn't have organic results. And a lot of publishers can't really say that. So we actually have a content blocker where you can actually check out a site how it looks without the content. It's not a bad thought experiment from a user perspective, if you're serious about it.
So Andrea, where would you like to see us going with use of data in the future? What's your kind of vision if you were given 30 seconds to sum that up? Because we ought to be summing up now, probably.
Yeah, I think content is a very interesting topic. So most of the KPI in the industry, in the programmatic industry, are about impression. Amount of impression, liquidity, cost of impression, but both advertiser and publisher, at least premium publisher, both of them, they care about user. So figuring out some new KPI that is an important value for advertiser, publisher, and everyone that is in the middle, like a programmatic marketplace, to figure out if actually the advertising user experience of the customer is a good experience or not. So figuring out how to deliver appropriate advertising content, and also for publisher to select appropriate advertiser to work with.
And Klaus, from you, what are the next big things that you see coming up?
Next big thing is definitely predictive analytics, I would say, because it's not about understanding what has happened in the past. It's not about understanding what's going on right now. That would be real time. The next thing is that we want to predict what will happen in the future. And this will open up a lot of new advertising possibilities, I think, because if you can forecast, for example, if somebody maybe is going to buy a house now, or he is getting divorced and he needs maybe a smaller apartment, and or he's getting married, stuff like that, and then you can use this information and sell it actually to audiences or advertisers, like to insurances, to wedding planners, stuff like that. And that's, I think, a very interesting way how you can use all this data that publishers have available to create new business models.
That's great. Well, with that, I'd like to thank our panelists for today. We've covered a wide range of data in the future, difficulties with talent, difficulties with industry issues of today. And I'd like to hand back to Bill. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.